Hey guys, what is up? This is Matthew Davis, me once again. Welcome back to another video game review. This time is going to be on Metroid Prime. It doesn't matter which version of Prime you're playing, and I'm sort of reviewing both versions. I'm reviewing the GameCube version because I played that first, and the remastered version, and exactly what the remaster does different than the GameCube version. Because I played both, though I never beat the GameCube version, so when I heard it was finally going to be coming out for Switch, I was hyped. And it came out like immediately after it was announced. So yeah, that just made it all the more exciting. And if you never played Metroid Prime before, it would be a shame if you didn't, because it's one of the all-time greatest first-person shooters / Nintendo games of all time. Of course, this is Samus's first adventure into 3D, as she never got her own game on the N64. She only made it into the first Smash Bros. Game, but she never got her own adventure, so we had to wait until Nintendo's next 3D console came out. So the fact that it would take them, like, I don't know how long it's been since, the last game that came before Metroid Prime, but of course I wasn't born in that time, and I didn't even know what Metroid was back then, or most Nintendo franchises back then. And of course, when it was first announced that Samus would finally make her way into the third dimension, people were excited until they noticed that Samus would be in a first-person view, which does not seem like it would fit in a Metroidvania-style game, because it's a Metroidvania game, but in 3D. It's basically like if Metroid Prime took place in the Halo world, though it's far more different than Halo. Of course, it's the same version of Metroid. You just platform your way while fighting off various enemies and have to get artifacts to uncover and reveal the final boss. Of course, Ridley is there, and chaos sparks throughout this entire world. Like, you're going to be finding your way through enemies, solving puzzles, and it's just a very fun adventure that I just had so much fun with. It's hailed by many as one of the best GameCube games of all time, and it rightfully deserves its place in history as one of them, because Metroid Prime took so many things that made Metroid great and cranked it up to 11 with its new 3D perspective, plus its first-person style, making its combat style very fun. And its control scheme just worked very well at the time, but I feel like on the Switch they work even better. The fact that you can use 2 analog sticks, because the yellow analog stick didn't do a whole lot for the original version. But you can play the Switch version in many different ways, from its original control scheme to the modern control scheme, or even the motion control scheme that was in the Wii Metroid Prime compilation pack. But it really doesn't matter how you play the game. There's always, or so far, every version of Metroid Prime is great. But with this new remaster, I feel like they did so much to make it a lot more than just emulation, because it's not just emulation, which is something that the Super Mario 3D All-Stars collection did, which is a shame, because that could have been great if it didn't feel that lazy. But nothing feels lazy in this remaster. It is gorgeous. It definitely looks next-gen, and the fact that it runs at 60 FPS and not 30 FPS like most Switch games do, it shows Nintendo really did put a lot of love into it, and we didn't even know it was coming out until the very last minute. Though, of course, we all wish that it would have been the Metroid Prime trilogy, but that doesn't mean there's hope to lose, because we're still going to be getting Metroid Prime 4, probably not for another 10 years or so, but it has been announced, so hopefully maybe when we finally get the trailer to that, then hopefully we will get the last 2 games, because fortunately, even though it's not the entire compilation pack, you don't have to pay full price for the Switch remaster, as it's $40 right now, and I feel like it's still worth it. Like, exploring this world for the very first time, if you haven't played the game, is perfect for newcomers. With the textures and the detail that they managed to put out here in this remaster is just absolutely outstanding to look at. The attention to detail, not only just in the worlds, but on Samus herself. Like, when you shoot missiles very close, you can see Samus's face. And I've heard in the ending, if you do 100%, you actually do see Samus's face. I didn't 100% the game, but it was so much fun to try and do. Because once you get, like, every single power-up that there is, then I feel like it just makes everything so much easier. Once you do, I feel like it's so much fun to try to get every single missile expansion or energy tank expansion throughout the journey. And it's really not that difficult, especially with the new difficulty system that Metroid Prime Remaster has, which I could definitely say works here for newcomers. If you struggled a lot with the GameCube version, then that's okay because there's a casual difficulty that makes things a lot more easier if you just want to experience the world without having to deal with all the challenge. I feel like it makes it all the more worth it because Metroid is definitely far from being an easy franchise. I mean, Metroid Dread did not have a difficulty system, and that game was brutal. It was one of the toughest Metroidvania style games I have ever played. But hey, it still managed to be my favorite game of 2021. And of course, because Metroid Prime was so popular and was so beloved, of course it got a franchise of its own. And of course, with each installment in that franchise, except Federation Force, it just got even more intense with each installment, giving us one of the greatest video game trilogies of all time. And I haven't played the other two games in the trilogy, but I really want to, as I was playing this masterpiece of a game. The immersion and the collectibles, to the brilliant music and the epic boss fights. It has some of the most memorable boss fights in the Metroid series, including the final boss, which might be my favorite boss out of the entire franchise because it's a perfect final boss. And it's one that they really managed to do justice, making it all the more worth it at the end. With the adventure that you go on when the game first starts for the very first time, when you go to your first boss, till you finally get to the deserted lands that you have to fight your way through. Of course, you have to get various items in order to progress. And of course, to go into specific doors, because what's really cool about your arm cannon is that it plays out a bit like a door key at some parts. Like you get different weapons, like you get different powers for your arm gun. I thought it made it very creative, and it made me really excited to get the next power up that I needed for specific areas that I needed to progress through. Also with the remaster version, there is a hint-based system where if you get stuck, it will indicate where you need to go next, giving you a question mark, and it will mark the area for you, which is definitely a lot more helpful, though it doesn't help you with the puzzles. You can either figure it out yourself or look up a walkthrough, because I don't know how the internet worked back then. Like, were we getting more guides, or was it the start of getting guides? Because YouTube didn't exist until 2005, so who knows? Whether you're confused with Metroid or not, it's honestly a gaming franchise that is just impossible not to love. With either game except Other M, I feel like the immersion and the experience that you have with these games are just so memorable. And with this one, I feel like it's let alone the best game in the series. If Super Metroid perfected 2D side-scrolling platforming, then I feel like this one really perfected 3D platforming. Despite its first-person perspective, it really didn't ruin anything at all. It really makes you feel like you're Samus. It's an experience that I will never forget, and even after finishing the game, throughout my 15-hour playthrough, it did take people a little bit less time, but that's because they really knew what they were doing. But of course, I had to look up specific things I need to do in order to progress, but nonetheless, it's still a game that I feel like every Nintendo fan needs to play at least once. If you love this series and never played this game before, you are really missing out. And I do want to play the other two games in the franchise because it is a game that will definitely frustrate you and will really test your skills, because there are items that you get that will help you progress. And though there are those really annoying sections that I had to platform my way through, and just falling all the way down definitely made me very frustrated, but it's a game I never really wanted to give up on because of the immersion, and I wanted to see what would happen next. And the music and all that, it just made me want to keep going, and Metroid Prime is truly a masterpiece of not only platforming, but also first-person shooting. The controls work super well, they're really tight, and just going throughout this entire experience all over again just makes it all the more exhilarating. Also, the auto-aim system is a lot better too. Like, it'll actually point and indicate the specific areas you need to shoot at in order to complete specific puzzles. It's a game that is very challenging, even on casual, but it's not like flat out impossible. Plus, once you beat the game, you can unlock hard difficulty if you want that flat out like absolutely hardcore Metroid experience. Metroid Prime is officially a game that everybody can pick up and play. Doesn't matter which difficulty you're playing on. Just the immersion and the experience and the combat are what really matters here. It's an adventure that nobody should ever miss out on. You need to play it before you die. You need to play it on like any console, whether you have the GameCube or the Wii compilation pack or the new Nintendo Switch remaster. There's always a great way to play this masterpiece. Though I definitely think that with the remaster, it's by far the best version to play. And there's absolutely no excuse given how every Nintendo fan has a Nintendo Switch. I'm just so happy this remaster exists, and I am so happy that this game hasn't aged a bit. It's still worth playing to this day, and I consider it one of the all-time greatest Nintendo games ever, period. It amazes me that we don't have an adaptation of Metroid, like no TV series or movie, even a made-for-TV movie, because Metroid is one of Nintendo's most beloved franchises, so there really is no excuse why it didn't get an adaptation like almost every single Nintendo franchise did. Did Fire Emblem ever get one? I don't know, but there is, of course, the Smash Brothers universe that they're doing, well, what people think they're doing, but who knows? Honestly, I would love to see a Legend of Zelda movie. That's honestly a gaming franchise that I feel like really needs a movie adaptation. With all the big name franchises getting movie adaptations, there was just no excuse why Legend of Zelda couldn't get one. Though then again, I don't know how they would get Link, because they would really have to learn from what happened with the CDI games. But yeah, anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Word out.